Hey guys, how's it going? This is Dan. I am here with Hunter and Matt, and we are going to be your hosts of the Blue Division weekly breakdowns for the MDL Season 3. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
Doing,
I
doing,
am doing
oh,
quite well.
oh well. Little hiccups happen like this when we got some new hosts together all at the same time. So, like I said, we are the hosts for the Blue Division. I've titled this one the Blue Division Bloodbath because I think we had a really great week this week compared to the Red Division. I feel lucky that this is the one we're doing the breakdown. We had two really great matches, and you guys also played. Uh, so,
Yes, we did.
I think without much further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the appetizer, which is the match that I will be covering,
Oh,
which is your match. So, it ended up as a pretty clean 2-0 for Matt. I have the kill death for each Pokemon broken down on the screen. So as you can see, Matt 4-0'd with Regidrago in one game and then 4-1'd with Celesteela in the other game. And Hunter picked up a kill with Metagross in game 2. So before I break down sort of like what my meta match analysis was, Hunter, what was your thought process behind just sort of going up there and dying for free
uh,
this week?
uh, uh, dude, you know what? I went into this game with like a semi-decent game plan, right? Because I look at my team, I look at Celesteal, and I just think to myself, man, I don't really have a whole lot for this. And like, if he starts boosting, it's over. Like, it's over. So, uh, yeah, you can go. I can explain my thought process later on if you want. But
Okay,
yeah, it was terrible. It
so
was
yeah,
terrible.
so game one, you were facing down a Raichu and a Regidrago with Beheeyem and something else that dies to Regidrago. I think it a Moongus game one?
It was.
Okay, so Helping Hand choice specs from a modest Regidrago launching Dragon Energy does just kill everything slower than it. I was running some calcs on that, and I did find one weird exception, which is that an Eviolite Dusclops is a roll to survive. So
Yeah,
that was a potential. I know there was some discussion whether Amoonguss or Dusclops was going to be
right,
better for you there, but
right.
uh, it was sort of just a really rough lead matchup. Game
Yeah,
one, like the only way you really take out Regidrago and Grimmsnarl is if you lead, I don't know, Dynamax Kingdra. That's special. It has Max Dragon. It can hit the Regidrago faster than it, and then also has Flash Cannon with a Max Steel Spike for the Grimmsnarl. Like that was one potential lead. I don't know if that was on your Kingdra sets or not, but that was probably the only thing on your team that I'm seeing that next to Metagross that would have been good against Matt's lead. But he just really did have a really good lead that game. And then game two, the plan with the Celesteela to let it ignore the Metagross. And Matt, I will ask, was the calc? Did you get the Beast Boost before attacking into the Metagross? Like, did you know that calc, or is that just more of sort of a feel thing?
I was actually doing that calc during the game.
Okay.
It was I was +2, and that was really the best way to get the one shot. Um, +2 at least, of course, but it might have been a roll depending on just exactly how much bulk he had in the Metagross. But I was confident that he was probably, well, I knew he was definitely speed invested at least a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because I had some speed in my Celesteela, and he was outspeeding me before I airstreamed. And I knew that he had taken 2 ticks of Life Orb, one before he had maxed. So he was down 15%. So I was pretty confident that I was going to be able to pick up the one shot there. It was at least going to be a roll in my favor.
Right. Yeah, and I think you had a really interesting game plan, being able to just get that helping hand annihilate beam from the Regidrago in game one, and then sort of roll into what a good answer to his answer to that would be with the Celesteela for game two. So I thought that was a really interesting setup both ways. So Hunter, I remember from your breakdown, you really were talking about not having much of a plan for the Regidrago. Uh, and I am
yeah.
curious about that. Like looking at Matt's team outside
Mm-hmm.
of the Celesteela and the Diggersby, that does seem like on his overall roster the most consistent way to deal damage to you.
Right.
So what were you expecting in the place of the Regidrago this week?
Yeah. So it's actually hilarious, and this is kind of metagaming a little bit, but Matt actually used Galarian Rapidash in his one-hit KO team that he streamed a couple weeks ago, maybe. So I thought maybe he would try and maybe try and do some ally switch shenanigans with that. I don't know, but I just didn't see it coming, and I think that like Dynamax Metagross, and I had Kingdra and Rain, and it would outspeed Regidrago all the time. I just felt like I had a decent matchup against it, so I didn't really necessarily think twice about it. And obviously that was a huge mistake. I actually was Special Kingdra. I was Focus Energy Scope Lens, so I was Crit Kingdra, and the plan was just to bring it in with a Moongus, maybe in a lead match. Like it was just like a certain matchup thing. Um, and hindsight, it's 2020. Actually, that would actually have been a decent lead for me there. But I mean, Reggie Draco is ridiculous, and yeah, he just kind of foiled my plans immediately. It was a bloodbath. It fits the title of the, it fits the title definitely.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I was running a couple calcs on the Regidrago, and I was pretty blown away at some of the numbers it was hitting into not just your team, but just a couple of other random things that might come up in future matchups, especially the Specs Helping Hand set. I know that's the most damage that it does, but it is that's a lot of damage. It is pretty fair
That's
to
a lot
say
of
for
damage.
that. But do either of you have any more thoughts on this match before we move on to another one?
No, that's pretty much it. I really don't have anything else to say except just Matt just like outplayed me and just outprepped me in every fashion in the game. Like I have to give all the credit to him, really. So that's pretty much it.
I appreciate that. I'll go into a little bit of my mindset going into this game, just to finish things off. I was actually pretty surprised to see this as Hunter 6. The Kingdra without Rain was definitely a big surprise. I didn't even expect him to be the crit set with Sniper. I just thought when I saw it without the Politoed, I just figured, okay, I don't think it's coming here at all because that looks like it's just a counter to my Rain since Kingdra just beats Ludicolo. So I think since I don't have Rain here, it just doesn't show up. That was my thought process at the time, and I was also very surprised not to see Crobat because Metagross Crobat stuff was some of the it was some of the stuff I was most afraid of, and that would have probably caused me to lead Grimmsnarl and Celesteela game one. Um, but with these six here, with most of his Trick Room mode, basically the only part of his Trick Room mode he was missing here was the Scrafty. Um, with most of that present here, I figured, okay, he's going decently hard Trick Room here, and the Regidrago was actually my counter to that, since I knew it was going to be really hard to prevent him from setting up Trick Room when he was redirecting. If I didn't have that thing there, so I had to slap the choice specs on it and go for Helping Hand. Just to the choice specs by itself was enough to one shot the standard max HP Behemoth, but the Helping Hand was needed for to make sure I got the KO on the Amoonguss as well. So that's why I decided to go with the Drago lead game one. And then I figured he has to bring Metagross because that's the only thing that he has to deal with Drago. There's no world where anyone can afford to just lead the same thing after game one went the way it went. So I figured Celesteela Grimmsnarl was going to be my answer to his answer, like you said, Dan. So um, that was just kind of my mindset going through this set.
Yeah, I think that you had a very good game plan for how to respond to his potential responses, and I do think Hunter on your team Behemoth is really an interesting choice because it's not something you can just freely run the Mental Herb on all the time because it is more frail than a lot of other Trick Room setters.
Yeah, most definitely.
So you have to make the choice between the Sash and the Herb on it. And if you had a Sash Behemoth, that might have been a different story this week. But
Right, most definitely. But I mean, Matt's a good player, so
Mhm.
I kind of expected the safety goggles taunt from the Grimmsnarl. So I just ran Mentor for that tech, and like I said before, like the Behem Amoonguss lead was really good against Celesteela Grimmsnarl because he has to run safety goggles on one thing, right? And if he
Right.
runs it on Celesteela, then he can't taunt me, and you know, I mean, and then if he runs it on Grimmsnarl, he can't kill my Behem, so I could trick him up like that. So that was like the game plan, right? But
Mhm.
obviously, I mean, Sash would have been better for the Reggie Draco, but I just didn't even think about it coming personally. So
Yeah, it's hard to cover
Yep.
everything, but I do think
Yeah,
that this
most of.
match was closer than the kill death would show it to be, because I do think that Matt predicted the leads correctly, but I don't think it was as one-sided given other leads, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually have one more question for Matt. So, do you remember the moment when you maxed Reggie Draco and I maxed Knuckled into the Reggie Draco with Snorlax? Do you remember that?
Oh yes, yes I
Dude,
do.
I was so mad because in what world do you dynam? I was like, no way he got me again. Like, oh my gosh, like there's a specific moment where I maxed the Snorlax and I replenished the Reggie Draco and it does like maybe 85 to 90. So I'm like, oh, I can just knuckle for the kill and get the boost so I can like maybe do some damage to something else coming in for differential. Yeah, no, he just Dynamaxed it right in my face and then I just didn't kill with the max knuckle. Yeah, that was really unfortunate.
Yeah, I actually didn't. I fully expected to lose Drago and lose my max there, given the circumstances, and
Mhm.
especially since you had protected the turn before. I was perfectly okay just getting one single max move off for the entire game, because I knew I could just pick up the Vikavolt, and then even though you still had another turn of max on Snorlax after that, I had Life Orb Superpower and Diggersby in the back, so I could just
Right,
felt comfortable just using that to finish off the Snorlax.
for sure.
All right. Well, I think with that, we can go ahead and get into our next matchup for the week, where Dina played Toxic in a really close three-game set. And I think, even though Dina did pick it up 2-1, I was very impressed with Toxic's filming and his play for this match. But I think I will pass this one off to Matt to take.
All right, so yeah, this one was definitely very interesting. It was actually quite a bit closer than I expected it to be. I think on paper, at least at a first glance, the matchups seemed to be in Dina's favor, and I think Toxic played well enough to overcome the matchup to a certain degree. So in game one. Oh, I'll start by saying the Toxic led the Dragapult Clefairy in all three games. Dina ended up switching up her leads every game. It was always Clefable something, but she did have a different partner for Clefable up in front for each individual game. So the first game, she went with her Nasty Plot Rotom next to the Clefable against the Dragapult Clefairy. Toxic actually made a pretty good play. I think usually your first thought is going to be, let's run Steel Wing on the Dragapult so we can blow up Clefable with the Steel move. But Dina was indeed running a Berry, so I thought it was a good idea for him to just go for the straight Life Orb Phantasm with Helping Hand, because that was able to pick up the KO on Clefable without having to worry about a type resist berry like that. So I think that was a pretty good choice. The so having that reliable way to one shot Clefable put Toxic in a pretty advantageous position. I think that during the rest the other two max turns he had, his move selection and his targeting was kind of his downfall. He on turn 3 he had a pretty easy KO on the Rotom and decided to target down the Dynamax Cinderace anyway, which just allowed Cinderace to get a max move off Keel Clefairy. The Rotom got a +2 Life Orb, Dark Pulse off onto Dragapult, killed the Dragapult, and that was kind of it. I think he had a much better chance if he had just taken out the Rotom there. But the Cinderace and Cinderace and Rotom were just able to clean up from there. Took out the Crocodile and and the Reuniclus without sustaining any more KOs. So that was a good win for Dina there. Game 2, it looked like Dina had some more early game momentum. She did lead with the Runa Regus set up Trick Room and brought in the Escavalier with Dynamax. After Clefable went down, it looked like she had some pretty good early game momentum, but Dragapult taking 2 KOs kind of hurt her because she ended up having Escavalier and Cinderace out, both of them getting intimidated, and she couldn't switch to get rid of those drops. And Toxic actually did a very good job cycling Intimidates with the Crocodile. Ended up switching it out immediately after bringing it in, so he could get a second Intimidate later on, and that slowed her down quite a bit. And that, along with the Toxic ended up getting a pretty easy KO on the Cinderace under Trick Room because I believe Dina actually thought that her Cinderace was Dark type because she had clicked Sucker Punch the turn before. But what's interesting about Sucker Punch and Libero is that Sucker Punch actually does not change your type if you don't get the move off. So she was still Fire type and ended up getting one shot by the High Horsepower. And I think that sealed up the game for Toxic. So going into Game 3, I think they were fairly evenly matched for the first few turns. Dragapult was ended up Clefable was doing a pretty good job of wasting some of Dragapult's max turns. Dragapult ended up giving Lurantis a defense boost when she switched the Cinderace into it, went for Follow Me on the Clefable. But at the same time, Dragapult was getting a KO on the Clefable, got a lot of good damage on Lurantis with Airstream even when it maxed at +1 defense. I think the Toxic gained a lot of momentum when Dina made a couple of mistakes and whiffed a few attacks into the Dragapult as it was clicking Fly or Phantom Force the turn after that. I believe there was a Max move and a Dark Pulse and a Night Slash, all that went into Dragapult as it was disappearing from the field, and that really put Toxic into a winning position. And I think he really just he lost it when he decided not to target down the Rotom with his Crocodile in the end game there. The Crocodile was faster; he could take it out before the Rotom went for a Hydro Pump on the Crocodile, and then at that point, I think the only way he loses is by missing High Horsepower onto the Cinderace after that. So I think he did that mostly because he assumed he would survive the Hydro Pump onto Crocodile because he was Assault Vest. He did not account for the Life Orb variant of Rotom, though, and ended up going down to a Hydro Pump, and then the Cinderace is able to take out the Togedemaru for the win. So, very close game, went down to the wire, but Dina was able to pull it out in Game 3. So what do you guys think about this one?
Yeah, I was very impressed with a lot of Toxic's play, especially with the Crocodile. You may think 0 kills. It sort of lives up to the Crocodile stereotype of 117 attack, never hitting any calcs. But I thought his play with it was very on point and supported the Dragapult quite well. I was a little shocked the Blastoise never came out. It seems like it has a decent matchup here, which is a weird thing to say in the face of a Rotom and a Lurantis, but I do think that Blastoise could have done work if he was able to play around the Rotom, but I do think that the setup Rotom was just sort of the trump card for Dina in this match because Toxic didn't bring anything that really effectively dealt with it. What about you, Hunter?
Yeah, so my first thoughts of watching this game were like, wow, this is a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Personally, I think, like I've said this and I've advocated for Dina's team a lot. I think Dina's team is one of the best in the league. And I think the pick'ems showed that everybody thought Dina was going to win, and that's just, I mean, that's whatever. I mean, the underdog always has a shot, and it's Pokemon, so you never know. And Toxic's team's actually pretty good. And when I was watching this game, I was really impressed with Toxic's play in a lot of these games. He was in it until the end, and yeah, I just have to give him credit for competing. Even though he didn't get the win, I feel like there's a lot that you can learn here. And like Matt Matt pretty much covered everything I was going to say about his move selection and short-term decision making a little bit. But other than that, yeah, no, he played great. And congrats to Dina for winning her week 1 match.
Yeah, and I know we're not going to talk too much about transactions that occurred, but I think Toxic did show that Dina's team is, or was, very soft to intimidate, so I do like her pickup of a competitive mod, but we'll be talking about that more in the Week 2 preview.
Yep.
But do we have any other closing thoughts on this matchup?
I do not.
I'll just say a little something about the Blastoise since you brought it up. I think Blastoise is actually a good bring here. What's weird is that he ended up going with a Shell Smash set, which seemed very weird against a team with Clefable. I think I would have liked to see a more support oriented set because I don't think Dina has a lot of stuff to deal with it aside from the Rotom and of course Toxic did have the Togedemaru here with the Lightning Rod to help out with that. So there's not a whole lot that's on Dina's side that's really going to be able to chunk it for big damage. There's the Lurantis too, of course, but Lurantis sometimes has a hard time with damage output if it's not getting going with those like superpower boosts.
Right.
But big offensive mons like a Scavalier and Cinderace, which she was clearly making good use of here, they have a hard time really taking out the Blastoise. They don't have any good electric or grass moves. So I think I would have liked to see that here. It might have been a good bring for Toxic, but I'm not convinced that the Shell Smash variant was the way to go here.
Yeah, I can understand that. I do think it was a really solid matchup overall, but moving on to the last match, Hunter, I believe you'll be covering that. It's me versus Jess.
Right, yeah. Okay. So, am I a little bit rash to say that this is the game of the week here? Am I a little rash to say that? I don't think I am. I think this is the game of the week. Well, actually, you know what? I can't say that yet because I think 2 people from the red division haven't played yet, so I can't say anything now. But as of right now, it's the game of the week.
That's the red division, so this is 100% the game of the week because our division's better.
I agree.
I'm with you there. Okay, so let's just get right into this. So, yeah. So game 1, I was thrown for a loop a little bit game 1 because and Dan, I know you were too because I was watching your video and I was right with you, dude. When she Dynamaxed the Slowbro turn 1, I was like, okay, what in the world's going on here? So she had a game plan. Okay, she was trying to get rid of that Tornadus, trying to deny you Tailwind with the fake on Incineroar. It was real smart. So she took out Tornadus pretty much for free. And I'm assuming like you taunted the Slowbro to try and like stop setup or stop Trick Room or something, just trying to like be a nuisance a little bit with the Tornadus. And it's really unfortunate that you didn't get that off because he just KO'd the Tornadus with Hailstorm I'm sorry. And then Dan brings in the Primarina and he's in a really good spot with the he just Dynamaxes it and realizes like, hey, nothing really touches Primarina here. I'm just gonna Dynamax it and see what happens. So he Dynamaxes it, and then he KOs Incineroar with Geyser, and then he switches the weather to Rain, which is really important because as you can see, Jess actually has a Hail mode, so he's winning the Weather War as of right now. Gets rid of the Incineroar, and then hits a clutch Sleep Powder on the Max Slowbro. So the Slowbro is asleep, while Dynamax. So it's a really unfortunate situation for Jess, and like she had all the momentum turn 1, and then all of a sudden it was just flipped around top of her head. Dan had all the momentum turn 2. So Jess, I think she realized that she lost once she realized that her Dynamax was pretty much gone. So she brings in the Ground Soul Volley and kind of goes for an Ice Fang onto a Tangela, but Tangela's a bulky boy. It took like 30% from an Ice Fang. So like, and then Bremer just KOs it with Geyser, and then just kind of ran away with game 1 there. Game 2. Dan was actually in a great spot as a lead matchup because he led Arcanine and he was expecting maybe like a Vanillix lead or an Arctozolt lead or like something a little different. So he Heat Waves because she led Incineroar Vanillux. So he Heat Waves thinking like this is a no lose play. Like I get damage on whatever. If she wants to switch out, that's fine. So he gets some damage off on the Slowbro and Incineroar. So it's pretty much game one all over again. He understands what he needs to do to win this game. Starts snarling the Slowbro, puts the Slowbro to sleep, but he realizes that she probably has her Hail Mode in the back. And I think that her game plan was probably just to sack Slowbro and Incineroar and trying to get Arctozolt in for free and try and set the Hail. So she actually does that after a couple turns, brings in the Arctozolt under Hail and just kind of wins against the Max Primarina and Arcanine. And then she takes game two. So, game three. So this game was a little interesting, and Dan was kind of confused and kind of up in the air about one of the plays that he made, but he actually had Dynamax Primarina on the field, and it was against an Arctozolt, and he realized, like, maybe I don't need my Dynamax for this game. I'm going to switch into Garchomp reading the Max Electric. But he also went for the Will-O-Wisp with Arcanine onto the Arctozolt. So he was up in the air about if he was going to live the Max Lightning or not with the Primarina. But even if Primarina was to live, I think it was smart saving the damage on Primarina, regardless. It's like, it's I don't know. Like, I think maybe, like, I wrote on my notes, I said, quote unquote, wasting the Dynamax, guys. I think that's kind of what you said in your, like, kind of implied in your video a little bit.
Yeah, this is game two still, right?
Yeah, this is game two. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry if I made you think it was game three. No, this is game two.
I believe, Dan, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe the thought process there was that Vanillix might be switching in and the Max Lightning would be going off before the Will-O-Wisp, which would most likely kill the Primarina, correct?
Right.
Yes, that was the thought process.
Right.
And I didn't have Protect on the Primarina because I can explain.
You were Assault Vest.
Yes,
you were Assault Vest,
part of it.
Yeah. So thank you for mentioning that. So like I said, like, I think the play was great. It was just an unfortunate game, and I think it was just very well played by Jess. And then eventually she beats Primarina and Tangela with Arctozolt. So that was game two. And then game three, this is where the fun stuff happens, right? So Dan makes a very high level adjustment read. Okay, he says, I think she's leading Hail. I'm gonna lead Tornadus Arcanine and get the Tailwind up while putting on pressure with my Fire type against her two Ice types, right? So he leads that, and then later on he makes another really great play. Tornadus goes down, obviously, because it's against Hail. Brings in the Colossal, right? He's weakness policy Colossal with Surf on Garchomp, right? I don't think a lot of people know that Garchomp actually gets Surf, so I think that's a really cool tech that he did. Good on you, by the way. Brings in the Colossal, right? And she has Wobbuffet on the field, and with Shadow Tag, so he can't switch out. So he's risking the biscuit right now, right? He brings it in, and he just beats down everything. He beats down the Slowbro. He gets great damage on the Slowbro with Vocalith. The residual damage is also very great from Vocalith. He gets rid of the Slowbro after a turn or two, which means his Fire types kind of run away with the game. She eventually makes it go down to Arctozolt Wobbuffet versus I think it was Garchomp Arcanine, and then you went for the Stomping Tantrum into Arctozolt, and she was actually faster because the Hail was up, and Arcanine actually lives with 1 HP from her Stomping Tantrum, which I think that's hilarious that you mentioned that. Every set that you guys have played, somebody's had a Pokemon that lives with like 1 HP, right? I think. Is that what you said?
Yeah. For our last two sets, I've had a Pokemon live with 1 HP without a Focus Sash on at least one game. So
right.
That's a streak I would like to continue.
Right. Right. That was actually pretty clutch. I think you still clutch it out with Garchomp regardless, but it was still pretty cool. Good for differential. So he Stomping Tantrums into the Arctozolt, and then you end up winning it with Garchomp and Arcanine. So it was a really good set. I think both of you played out of your minds. I think that the adjustment read game 3 was just so high level, and oh my gosh! And then bringing in the Colossal, where boys become men, as one might say. Yeah, I was just very impressed with your play, Dan, and also Jess too. Game 2, her her positioning was very, very good, and the weather control on her part was really, really great. And I'm gonna bring up the power rankings again. I know they don't really matter that much, but her team was power ranked pretty low on the list, if I'm not mistaken.
I think she was 7th.
7. Okay, well she was. Okay, then wait, what? Are you sure?
No, that sounds right.
80% sure.
7th. Okay. Well, then my apologies. I thought she would have been like closer to 9th or 10th. I had her like 7th or 8th too, but I was just wondering. Okay, anyways. Her team, I think her team's kind of slept on a little bit, but she has tools to make it work. And you mentioned in your video that Wobbuffet was actually kind of a nuisance. You're just gonna ignore it because there's absolutely no reason to put damage on it unless you absolutely have to. And I just think I think that was pretty smart. Even though it was kind of obvious, I still think it was pretty smart to try and avoid it as much as possible. I think that's pretty much it. So, Dan, can you kind of go through your thought process on this game a little bit, going into it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll give Matt a chance to
right.
jump in as well. But my thought process was the bulky, because I was running a very, very physically bulky Arcanine, was going to be my best answer against Arctozolt, which could be either a Hail variant or a slow variant in Trick Room. So that was sort of my building block pieces, and then from there I saw that Primarina did pretty well against a lot of the team. Tangela could redirect the majority of her damage because a lot of it was physical, and then in the back I went with the Garchomp Coal to potentially set up Colossal, even though that didn't end up happening. I think in Game 2, the last couple turns, the last couple consequential turns at least, because I really dragged that game out much longer than it needed to go, I had a 50-50 read that I ended up making wrong, and I think there was the chance that there was a third potential play that I didn't think of. But I knew that Tangela would... I'll put it like this. I knew Primarina could knock out the Arctozolt, but Arctozolt was faster than the Primarina. However, I had Tangela on the field, so if I redirected Arctozolt's attack into Tangela and then attacked with the Primarina, it would take out the Arctozolt, and then I'd have to 2v1 her Slowbro, which I was confident in doing. I'm not sure if that confidence was unfounded or not, but I was confident. But if the Arctozolt protected, thinking of that play on my end, and then the Slowbro took out the Tangela, then the Arctozolt just got a free attack into the Primarina the next turn. So that's what I ended up predicting happening, and I was wrong, so I just ate a Bolt Beak to the face with Primarina that turn. But I think that was the deciding moments of Game 2. Game 3, I just threw out Colossal and decided to target down that opposite slot, and I knew I was never going to launch a max Solar Beam because the Slowbro, I was able to knock off the Rindo Berry Game 1, so I knew it actually didn't hit anything on the team, so I could just Volcalith into that slot pretty freely.
Right.
But other than that, I think that basically explains my thought process through the games. Oh, and the Tornadus, I was checking to see if it was Regenerator or not on the Slowbro with the taunt.
Right.
But yeah, Matt, what are your thoughts on this match?
I think Hunter pretty much covered most or all of what I was going to say. I'll just emphasize some strengths in play that I saw from both sides here. I think that one of Jess's main strengths here was, like Hunter mentioned, her positioning, especially with her hail mode. In Game 2 especially, she just positioned it very well, and it seemed to me like that was kind of the name of the game for her, is just positioning the hail mode correctly. I think she did a pretty good job of that in a couple of different situations, Game 2 in particular. I just liked seeing the strength of Dan's bulky Firewater Grass core. I really like Arcanine and Primarina together. I was a little bit skeptical of how Tangela was going to fit in there. But I think when you're using a more defensive build on all three of them like this, that's probably when it's going to work out the best. And I thought it was a pretty strong build, and I think you used it pretty well. Last thing I'll mention, I'm actually curious about your guys' opinion on the Wobbuffet here, because in Game 3, it kind of seemed to me like Wobbuffet kind of screwed her over. At least that's how it looked to me. It seems like when you're playing against somebody who knows what to do with the Wobbuffet, which Dan did, he just basically attacked around it.
Right.
It seems to me like it just turns that into a 2v1, and the only benefit that the Wobbuffet player is getting out of that 2v1 is that the two on the opponent's side can't switch, which
Right.
oftentimes doesn't seem like it would be a net positive for the Wobbuffet player. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Well, okay. So like you said before, it's kind of a 2v1, right? Like you can just play around it like Dan did. Like he played it really great. I like I just think that another Pokemon could have filled that slot and been more useful than the Wobbuffet. I mean, the Shadow Tag is cool, right? But like in Dan's case, he didn't really need to switch out like most of the time. Like he was positioned well enough. He played around the Shadow Tag to like position himself well enough to it doesn't even matter. Like he brought in the Colossal with the like he knew what he needed to do. I totally agree with you. I think that it kind of screwed her over in the end. I think, yeah, definitely. Yeah, most definitely.
And I think part of it was the way that I decided to handle the Wobbuffet was to only deal residual damage to it. If that
Yes.
Wobbuffet was at full HP at the end of the game, we're having an entirely different conversation, and I'm very sad right now because it takes out both of the things remaining on my team. But I think because I was able to get up a Volcalith and a Burn on it early to just let it get chipped down as it sat on the field, it was less efficient of an end game than what I think she wanted it to be.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah. The chip damage was huge.
Yeah, from the Will-O-Wisp, and I know it's unfortunate that you missed the first one, but at least you hit the second one. You clutched up with the Burn, and the Vocalist is also very nice. So yeah.
Look, I'll be honest, Arcanine missed twice into Wobbuffet, and once was a Heat Wave that would have gotten bounced back, but Tangela didn't miss a Sleep Powder, and that's a trade I will take any day.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
Of
Tangela
course,
is
yeah.
clutch.
All right, well, before we wrap up, we're just going to take a quick look at the standings for the league as a whole real quick. So we've got through 1 week. Grant and Dark have their week 1 matchup on Monday, so they're in where they are right now, but the winners so far have been Matt, Izzy, Dan, Dina, and Hector, who won with a -3 differential, which is that's impressive. There's no other way
Odd.
to say it. And then
Right.
the week 1 losers so far have been John, who had a +1 differential in defeat, Jess, Toxic, Burst, and Hunter. So I just wanted to quickly take a look at the standings, let everyone know where things are standing so far. But do you guys have any closing thoughts before we sign off?
Okay, so I actually have one, and that I just wanted to apologize to Jess and anybody watching because she was power ranked 7th. I actually looked. So yeah, I just wanted to apologize for that. Pretty good games this week, across the board. Even you know what, I'll give the Red Division a little bit of credit this time. I'm sorry, guys. They had some good games too. Okay. Pretty good games, pretty good week 1, guys, and yeah, that's pretty much it for me. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, good week. I know I had fun. Can't speak for everybody, but yeah, I think it was a good week overall.
Fantastic. Well, for Hunter and Matt, this is Dan, and we have been your casters for the Blue Division for week 1 of the MDL. We will see you guys next week. Bye.